Hello, this is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming powerful new moon, which is also a solar eclipse in 23 degrees of Sagittarius, which will become exact on December 14th at 11:17 a.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, and 4:17 p.m. London time. Now, since this will be a little bit of a longer video due to the eclipse component, the timestamps I have added to the description part of the video below might come in handy, so go check those out and see if you want to use them. And let's talk a little bit about eclipses. So solar eclipses are extra powerful new moons that take place approximately every 6 months. During a solar eclipse, the moon momentarily interrupts the normal flow of solar radiation, destabilizing existing configurations of energy and reorganizing consciousness to a higher level. So it's almost like like an upgrade or like an evolutionary process. So solar eclipses also indicate the beginning of a new experience or a new project or a new cycle. And this eclipse in particular begins a new cycle because it's the first solar eclipse in Sagittarius since the moon nodes have moved into Gemini-Sagittarius back in May. But we'll get more to that in a moment. Now, this is the last of 6 eclipses in 2020, and even though there is a new moon each month, eclipses only occur 4 to 7 times a year, which sounds like a lot, right? For those of you who don't really know much about eclipses, but the eclipses have to do with the connection of the moon nodes, where the moon nodes and the sun and the moon align precisely in such a way that an eclipse can take place. So when the sun, the moon, and the earth are in sort of like a straight line with each other, that's when we have an eclipse. So eclipses usually come in pairs. They're solar and lunar eclipses. And eclipse season starts 10 days before the first eclipse. In this case, it was a lunar eclipse that already happened at the end of November, the lunar eclipse in Gemini. And it continues through the time of the second eclipse. For this eclipse season, that would be the solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And so this eclipse season started on November 20th and lasts until December 24th. So while eclipse season is underway, allow for new templates to download, stay centered, and do your best to ground from within. Try using conscious breathing and conscious flexibility as best as you can, and see if you can move to the observer position when it comes to the emotional and the mental body, especially the mental body, because Sagittarius will agitate the mental body a little bit. And remember, this won't last forever. It will be over by December 24th. At that point, the downloads are going to be complete, the energetic downloads. So eclipses are definitely a time for clarifying and affirming our highest path because it is an evolutionary event. And so we're bound to experience a release of some sort or recalibration of some sort, which means that old codes are going to get deleted and new ones are going to be downloaded. Especially in connection with belief systems, social and cultural conditioning, and assumptions we carry around with us because it's connected to Sagittarius. And so this helps us see things a little bit more from a wider perspective once we're able to release these things. Now, the sun and moon are connected to one of the moon nodes, like I mentioned already. And so there is a switching that happens between north and south node eclipses. Now, this is the first south node solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And south node eclipses ask us to release or redefine energies or attachments that no longer serve our soul's evolution. And they also heighten past issues that need our attention so we can grow beyond some of these past issues or the various conditionings that we have enjoyed in childhood or throughout young adulthood. And this happens on an individual and on a collective level, because this is something that each one of us is dealing with individually, but also collectively there's a shifting that's happening with the eclipses. So eclipses are basically crossroads or turning points along our soul's journey, and they're often marked by events or situations that signify a critical shift in our lives, especially if the eclipse hits something in your birth chart. And so these eclipses often, they nudge us to either change or grow or face greater difficulties at the next turning point that occurs. So what you could say is that solar eclipses in particular often correspond with major endings and beginnings. And again, in particular, if you have something in your own birth chart that connects with the eclipse energy. Now, they occur close to the same degree every 19 years. And the last time we had a South Node solar eclipse in that same degree was in December of 2001. So very often you could say, we're likely to experience something that resonates back to that time. But it's important to remember that it's really just a resonance. It's not going to be exactly the same, of course, because this is 19 years later and we've all grown and evolved since then. But there's a resonance, an energetic resonance. So think back to the winter of 2001, 2002, and ask yourself, were there any major endings or beginnings in your life at that time? And what was important to me back then? And if I were to take those priorities to the next level, where would that next level find me this time around? So these are some questions you can ask just in connection with the resonance back to that 19-year cycle. And if you're looking for more guidance on those questions, and if I would suggest that you take a look at your birth chart and look at the house placement of the eclipse, because that will indicate which area of life is most ready to release outdated beliefs and social conditioning and go to that new level of consciousness this time around. So if that appeals, if you want to do that, check out my 30-minute class on how to read my birth chart. You can get free access to that class via my homepage at astrologercoach.com. And you just need to scroll down to a window that says free class. And once you find that box where it says free class, just click on that and then you can watch that class for free. All right. Now, solar eclipses are a good time to go within, to just get quiet, to seed anything we would like to redefine or release over the next 6 months. Because remember, an eclipse cycle is a 6-month cycle. And we'll dig into this in more detail towards the end of this forecast as well, with times and good times to do that, when we talk about setting solar eclipse intentions. But please keep in mind that setting intentions for a solar eclipse is different from setting intentions for a regular new moon. Okay, so if you want to know what that difference is, please stay tuned until the end. Now, with the solar eclipse in optimistic, adventurous, truth-seeking Sagittarius, we seek to expand our day-to-day knowledge and look for larger perspectives. Sagittarius is always about the bigger picture, going beyond what we already know. So for the next 6 months, some good questions to ask yourself, and feel free to always keep coming back to those questions over the next 6 months. This is not just for now, but you can really use these questions on a regular basis. What philosophies most resonate with me? What life perspectives are no longer serving me? What stories have I been telling myself about life up until now, right? And what universal truths feel immediately in alignment with my direct experience of life right now? What universal truths feel immediately in alignment with my direct experience of life right now? That's a very powerful question, because we don't ask ourselves that question very often. And it is a very important, valid question to ask. And just remember, with these questions, I know I say this very often in my videos, but I just want to make sure that for those of you who are new to my videos, understand that you do not need to answer these questions right away. This is an inquiry. It's an inquiry in connection with your higher self, a collaboration with your higher self to just see what comes up intuitively. What are you connecting with? What you're sensing when you're asking these questions, right? To really tap into your feeling body and tap into, maybe a higher place in you to really get some very authentic answers to these questions. And give yourself time to let these answers come to you. You don't have to. This is not a questionnaire, or it's not a quiz, right? It's really more about aligning ourselves with the universal energies that are currently going on. Now, some other questions you can ask yourself here too is, where is my understanding of life different from where it was 3 years ago? And do I see the glass as half full or half empty at this time? Do I shy away from life's challenges or thrive on exploring new ways to deal with adversity? These are some very good current questions to ask. All right, now if you want to have access to the new moon solar eclipse questions from this video in writing, and also the full moon videos every month, feel free to check out my various levels of membership that are available on my website at astrologercoach.com. If you're already a member, check your membership portal by signing into your account, and you will find all my posts inside the My Content tab. And the new moon solar eclipse questions are available via the Solar Eclipse in Sagittarius article, which I will be posting at the very latest by December 8th. All right, so if you want to have access to these questions and you're already a member, then feel free to go there. Now, within the first 6 days of this solar eclipse, so the solar eclipse becomes exact on December 14th, and within 6 days after that, there are some major planetary shifts that are happening. So this is really big for eclipse, because the eclipse already is a big shift, but then we're also experiencing a lot of shifts right after the eclipse as well. So one of the shifts is that Venus changes signs only 24 hours after eclipse becomes exact from Scorpio to Sagittarius. So that's one of the shifts. The other one is that Chiron in Aries comes to a complete halt the following day of the eclipse, so the next day after the eclipse on December 15th, ending its 5 months retrograde phase, making this energy immensely exalted at the time of the eclipse. That's important because that will also influence the eclipse energy. Now, the other thing that happens is that Saturn changes signs 2.5 days after the eclipse becomes exact on December 17th, starting its 2.5-year journey through Aquarius. That is a huge, big deal. Huge, big deal. Not only because Saturn is changing signs, but also because Jupiter does the same on December 19th, also entering Aquarius, creating this new energy in Aquarius with Saturn and Jupiter that will have sort of an alignment or a conjunction on December 21st, which is also the day of the solstice, of the winter solstice. So big things happening within that week of the eclipse. But more on some of these shifts in a moment. But let's first talk about some of the aspects in this solar eclipse chart. Now, Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is an important component of this solar eclipse chart. And Jupiter is still in Capricorn at the time of the eclipse, like I said, until December 19th. And so this is our last chance to make use of this sobering, practical, accomplish-oriented Capricorn energy for our own gain before Jupiter moves into freedom-loving, forward-thinking, objective Aquarius, which is much more group-oriented, much more other people-oriented. Okay, so we're really here right now to do some of more of the internal work connected to ourselves. And so, of course, whenever a planet ends a cycle and comes to the very end of a degree of Capricorn, there's a completion that's being felt, right? We're feeling sort of this sense of completion. Now, if you want to know how this 1-year Jupiter transit through Aquarius and its alignment with Saturn in Aquarius might impact you personally, I invite you to join us on December 6th for the last forecasting forum of the year. Other than booking a reading with me, this is really the maximum level of support that I offer, and it's only $37 for a 90+ minute webinar. Very often we go more than 90 minutes. And I will answer questions during the webinar. You'll get to work with your own birth chart. It's a really fantastic way to look into the energies that are coming up. Now, if you want to register for this month's only, you can find the link to register below this video in the description part of the solar eclipse video. But if you want to stay in alignment with the universal energies of 2021, I recommend that you take a look at the star membership on my website. This will give you free access to my monthly forecasting forums, in addition to many other amazing membership benefits. So feel free to check that out at astrologercoach.com. And if you watch this video after December 6th, feel free to get the webinar on the Jupiter-Saturn alignment in Aquarius on my website on the webinar page. There will also be a link to the webinar below the video as well. And if you have any general questions about webinars and registrations or anything to do with astrology, anything general, then feel free to reach out to info@astrologercoach.com. Happy to answer general questions. Personal questions, I will ask you to book a reading, okay, or join the monthly forecasting forum. Now back to the solar eclipse chart. Anything that expands our perspective around our collective feeling of safety is of interest to us with Jupiter in Capricorn, especially until December 19th. And this could involve things like our potential for overcoming adversity in the real world, or our faith or lack thereof in our physical and cultural structures at this time. So what you can ask yourself here is, might stepping outside of my social and cultural conditioning bring me to a place where I can see myself and perhaps even life itself from a new perspective? So this is a good question to ask if you're having some difficulty dealing with how the energies are currently moving, how you're feeling in this current climate that we're in. If you're having difficulties, use this question and just allow yourself to meditate with that question, or journal on that question, or just sit with that question and allow yourself to receive the answer from your higher self. Now, with the ruler of this eclipse in Capricorn, and also very closely aligned to Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, we may also be prone to a heavy heart. Depression or negativity is a possibility. So as best as you can, just channel all that sobering Capricorn energy into something worthwhile. After all, we do feel quite persistent and diligent right now with that Capricorn energy. And that can really help us manifest something sustainable, something lasting. So don't give up, right? Just remember, Capricorn is a very serious sign, but it doesn't mean that we need to despair just because it's serious. Use that seriousness to manifest something that's real and sustainable. Look in your life, where could you do that? And then ask yourself, what can I do with all that sobering energy that's coming through right now? And how might I use it to my advantage? Could I go beyond what I've known myself to be? And what might be one courageous act, one leap of faith that might shift things for me for the long term? So just experiment, when it comes to this energy, make little experiments and see how you can use this Capricorn energy in a way that actually serves you. Now, another planet that's very important in this solar eclipse chart is Mercury, because it aligns with the solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And Mercury, of course, is the ruler of the North Node in Gemini right now. So this is really important. This is allowing our mind to think bigger and go beyond our emotional experience towards a larger perspective on what the meaning of all of it might be. So this invites us to be open to shifting our perceptions about certain things. So you might therefore want to ask yourself, what are my attitudes towards life, towards that situation? And you probably know which situation that refers to. we all have a situation, right, where we need to be shifting our attitudes. So whatever that situation is, right? And where do I insist on being right? This is a big one right now because with so much Sagittarius and also the South Node being in Sagittarius, there's a tendency to kind of step into this trap of wanting to be right about things. So where do I insist on being right? And how do I usually feel afterwards when I insist on that? And this is something we might want to observe also when we're hanging out with family, during the holiday time. Where do you insist on being right? And how do I feel afterwards? And here it is really wise to distinguish between three things. There's three truths. There is my truth, there is your truth, and then there is the truth. So that's just something to think about, because very often we tend to throw around with the expression truth or the truth very lightly without really investigating that to a deeper degree. Now, one of the things that we might also want to investigate here is, the illusion of separation from the divine and being able to really see through that illusion. And that is perhaps one of the greatest perspective shifts of all that we could undertake right now. And it's not always an easy one to make, especially with this many planets in Capricorn right now. So just meditate on that maybe and see how you can tap more into that connection with the divine and your own divinity, with the connection to your own divinity, and see how you can shift your perspective around what that means for you. Now, as I mentioned before already, Chiron is stationing right now with this eclipse. And so it's exalted in Aries. And that's because it's ending its 5 months retrograde phase only 30 hours after the solar eclipse becomes exact. Now, Chiron is considered the bridge between the limitation-bound physical world and the unlimited non-physical or spiritual, and is often referred to as the wounded healer. And it reminds us of our own humanity and guides us to see it as a gift, to see humanity or our inner humanity as a gift. And so when we take responsibility for our human limitations and move past seeing them as wrong or as bad, our inner gifts and uniqueness can emerge more completely and more powerfully when we do that. So what you want to ask yourself with this Chiron station is, what has come up since early December concerning my ancestors' wounding around the masculine energies? And sit with that question because, the masculine can mean a lot of things. And I don't want you to go necessarily towards the physical expression of the masculine, but what does that masculine mean on an emotional level or on a spiritual level or on a mental level? And how about my own wounding in connection to the masculine? And how clearly do I see the next step on my healing path? What is that going to look like? What is the expression of me in this world and how I see myself? And what's the next step on that expression towards being more fully me or more holistically me? And what might be possible if I allowed myself to shift from resisting my limitations around anger to acknowledging and embracing them? Because very often, the Aries energy is connected to anger or assertion. So sometimes we feel like we have a limitation there when it comes to Chiron and Aries. So what might be possible if I allowed myself to shift from resisting my limitations around anger to acknowledging and embracing them? Because one of the things that helps us with healing something is to acknowledge it and to embrace it or to accept it as is. So where am I responding or reacting to my circumstances? That's something else we want to check out, because of course with Aries there's sometimes this impulsivity, right? So where am I reacting, right, versus responding to my circumstances? And could I bring an open and compassionate awareness to this as I'm doing it? And that's important, because the more judgment we pull on ourselves when it comes to Chiron, the deeper the wounding gets, and the less complete or whole we feel. The more compassion and open-mindedness and open understanding we can bring to the place of Chiron, the more we heal. So it's really important to distinguish the two. So another question you can ask yourself with this Chiron placement is, might a holistic approach, seeing myself as a spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical being, support my personal growth at this time? And again, just something to kind of sit with, meditate with, and just see what comes up as we do that. Now, another planet that's stationing at this time still is Neptune, and is also exalted, of course. It's in Pisces, its own sign, and that station will last until December 18th. And not only does Neptune square the moon nodes in Gemini-Sagittarius, which I think I've mentioned several times already in some other videos, it also makes a square to Mercury and the solar eclipse in Sagittarius. So a square, of course, is always sort of like a challenging aspect, an aspect that where we need to make some adjustments. So this invites us to make adjustments and find creative solutions, because we're feeling pulled in two quite different directions here. On the one hand, with Neptune, we want to experience this inner silence. We want to connect to emotional oneness, energetic oneness, and we want to connect to the flow of life and this creative force inside of us, the flow of creativity that comes through us. And then on the other hand, we also want to explore, with Mercury and the solar eclipse in Sagittarius, we want to explore our belief systems, our belief structures. We want to share our discoveries, what we see, what we experience, what we know. And so this is much more of an extroverted approach, right? Rather than the Neptune in Pisces is more introverted. And this tension between those two energies may leave us feeling anxious or restless. And so as best as you can, slow down, acknowledge what is, and know that all is well in each now moment. So if we just stay present to the present moment, if we just stay present in the now moment, we can realize through connecting to our breath, connecting to our body, connecting to just focusing on something that can hold our attention in the present moment, something beautiful, something, that connects us, something like music, for example, or nature can really be a big help with that. When we stay present in the present moment, we can really get back to that place of connecting to our divinity, to our creativity, to the flow of life. And so that's very important with this square, that we practice that. So ask yourself, what challenges am I facing at this time around resting, trusting, and allowing? These are some things that we might have challenges with. How closely am I in touch with my intuition at this time? We might get a little distracted from that. We might feel like this busyness that we're experiencing might take us away from that intuition. So keep centering yourself back into your intuition by asking that question. How closely am I in touch with my intuition right now? And what might be possible if I allowed myself to shift from my social cultural conditioning to feeling into the truth of who I am? Because, this social cultural conditioning, that's a lot of just noise. That's just stuff that we've been programmed to believe, programmed to think that that's me. But if I go beyond that noise, beyond that conditioning, and I really feel into myself, What is the truth that shows up when I do that? What's there? So again, just experiment with this question as much as you can over the next 6 months. It's going to be very helpful. Now, feel free to also watch my additional support video on Neptune squaring the moon nodes, which you can find on my website at astrologercoach.com, or I will also have a link of this short video below the description part of this video. Now, another aspect to talk about is that Mars in Aries trines the solar eclipse and Mercury in Sagittarius, but also squares Pluto in Capricorn. So we have two very different aspects here connected to Mars in Aries. So let's unpack that. So Mars is trine to the eclipse and Mercury alignment, shows us that when we bring conscious awareness to our actions and create enthusiasm and passion for a project, we might create something unique and brand new. And we might feel, exhilarated by doing that. Now, what you want to ask yourself is, if I were to start something I feel passionate or enthusiastic about, what might that be? And what pops into my awareness when I hear that? And what would be a fantastic use for any and all physical energy that I have currently access to? Because remember, when Mars makes a trine to that eclipse and to Mercury, there's a lot of energy that we're going to be feeling because it's fire, right? Fire, Aries is fire, Sagittarius is fire, which gives us access to a lot of energy. So how can I make best use of this wonderful energy that I have access to right now? Now let's talk about the square to Pluto in Capricorn. Now that indicates that we are at a turning point of some sort, and we really want to follow our inner compass towards our own passions, or at least a new project. But we also have a deep urge for a sense of authentic connection to what we have been building long term. So we may have to make some changes or adjustments to some long-term goals, and perhaps also to some personal projects. Now this square will last for a while. It will be exact on December 23rd. And we will actually feel the energies of that square until January 6, 2021. So quite a long time. And a square always resonates back to the conjunctions between those two planets involved. And in this case, we need to look at the Mars-Pluto alignment in Capricorn earlier this year, which was exact on March 23rd, 2020. So ask yourself, what was happening at that time in connection with my personal goals? And how about the desire to feel empowered out there in the world? What was happening at that time in regards to that? And what is calling for change now? What were my motivations then in March, and what are they now? So what has changed, right? What's that turning point? And if you feel pressured into doing something or feel a power struggle building at this time, get as centered and as grounded as you're able to, and use your creativity to move something forward. If you feel something challenging, just really allow yourself to step into yourself and go, I can do this. Now ask yourself here is, what if this were a major growth opportunity in clever disguise? So whatever struggle might show up, power struggle or struggle within yourself or with a situation or a person, what if it were a major growth opportunity in clever disguise? And could I then let go of wanting to control another person's experience so I can feel better about myself? And what if fear was simply absent, just mysteriously left in the night and didn't come back in the morning? How would I proceed then? So just remember, fear is one of those things that we definitely want to give a lot of our conscious attention to, because fear tends to get in our way of connecting to our heart. It tends to get in the way of having healthy, good relationships with other people. It tends to get in the way of our own happiness. It tends to get in the way of staying open-minded and open-hearted. And that means it makes it very difficult to manifest the things that we really want to manifest. So really pay attention to the fear levels that are inside of you, and really be honest and authentic with yourself about them. Because often with fear, we tend to ignore it, we tend to push it down, we tend to not want to even acknowledge the fact that we have fear or that there is fear present. But of course, if you are a human being, and really check if you are a human being, then fear is something that will most likely be present at one time or another. So you got to be honest with yourself about your fears. And if you want to call them concerns, if you want to call them worries, if you want to call them discomforts, they're all connected to fear as a whole, the whole subject of fear. All right, now let's talk about the last aspect of the solar eclipse chart, which is Venus in a late degree of Scorpio, sextiles Jupiter and Saturn in a late degree of Capricorn. And this is an opportunity to see more clearly when and how we might want to make long-term investments in other people's resources. And there is no need to rush anything with this. It's important to really do our due diligence here with this. So ask yourself, what if I excelled at thinking opportunities through carefully, responsibly, and performed a thorough due diligence? How would I proceed if that were the case? Great question with this aspect. And what might be a good long-term investment at this time for me? And who or what feels empowering to me? When we make investments into something, into anything, whether that's a situation or another person, or something that we want to invest in terms of our time or our finances, we want to ask ourselves, who or what feels empowering to me? Because when we make an investment in something or someone that doesn't feel empowering, we're just wasting our energy, we're wasting our time, we're wasting our money. So always ask yourself, does that feel in alignment? Does it feel empowering to me? And we also need to mention here that Saturn lies in an exalted degree at this time. It's in 29 degrees of Capricorn at the time of the eclipse. And therefore, it can be felt quite strongly. So being very responsible and very grounded in our decisions, very important. And also, something is coming to completion that we started in December 2017 or in the year of 2018. So look to see what that might be that needs to come to completion right now. And just remember, this is Saturn's last hurrah before it switches into Aquarius for the next 2.5 years. Big deal, big deal. And we will talk in more detail about what's to come in 2021 in our webinar, 2021, A Look Ahead. And you can join us live for that webinar on January 8th, 2021. Or you can also watch the MP4 video presentation of this webinar. Just know that the registration for this webinar begins on December 7th, not before then, okay? Because we still have another forecasting forum on December 6th. So the registration for this particular webinar starts on December 7th. So put that into your calendar if you want to join to register at that time. Now, to sum it all up for this powerful new moon and this incredible solar eclipse, while flexibility and open-mindedness are always helpful, of course, whenever there's an eclipse and just in general in life as well, this is especially important right now. So notice when you're digging your heels in about anything, because it's usually a sign that you have some underlying anxiety about something else. Something's going on that you're dealing with, and that's why you get kind of like that, right? So take a deep breath and get centered in your body. Close your eyes and focus on your third eye. And from that centered place, ask yourself, what am I afraid of happening? And how might I channel this restless energy into projects that are asking for progress? And how might I channel or just burn off all this erratic energy that I'm currently experiencing? And remember, this is eclipse energy, right? So how might I channel or just burn off all this erratic energy? And what kind of exercise might be an energetic match to that? And remember, with exercise, it doesn't have to be necessarily exercise. This is just an example. But if you do exercise, really, really look what's a match for you personally. Because everyone will have a different way of needing to work with this energy. So what kind of exercise or what kind of action might be an energetic match? And where am I stagnating right now? Where am I not able to move forward? And then, as best as you can, provide yourself with compassion and understanding. Embrace your inner divinity in all its infinite wonder and capacity to simply know. Because we all can tap into that. We all can tap into, when we go beyond that conditioning, beyond that mind energy, if we just get silent and quiet and we tap into our own energy body, there is that infinite connection to knowing exactly what is so. So ask yourself, if there was a reason for me to be here at this time, what might that reason be? And where am I headed? Where do I need to take a leap of faith or simply trust? Trust that my presence, my energy is contributing something in the long run, that I'm here for a reason. I also have a really wonderful quote from Michael Meade, an American author and mythologist and storyteller, that fits really beautifully here with this eclipse energy that you might also find helpful. And you can find this quote on my website inside the Solar Eclipse article, and that article is available for all my members, okay? Or feel free to become a member on my site. Now keep looking at what needs to heal as well, because Chiron is very strong in this eclipse chart. What needs to be communicated, because Mercury is very strong in this eclipse chart as well. And for the completion of some issues in your life or something that needs to be completed, because we do have Saturn in Capricorn in 29 degrees. Okay, so these are all connected to this eclipse. Now, if you do have an ascendant or any personal planets in 18 to 28 degrees of Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, or Pisces, then this eclipse will impact you much greater than anybody else. And remember, with eclipses, we do have a much larger orb that we're using for the degrees that are impacted in our birth charts. Okay, so even if you don't have these degrees and signs in your chart, if you don't have a point or planet in these degrees or signs, still take a look in your birth chart to see where does the eclipse land in your birth chart. And then also remember that in the forecasting forum on December 6th, I will be answering questions about the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse if you have any questions about that in terms of your own chart. Okay, now let's talk about intentions. Setting intentions for the solar eclipse is a little different from the regular monthly new moon process, because we're setting intentions for the whole 6 months eclipse cycle rather than for the next 28 days. But also, solar eclipse intentions are best done 48 hours after the eclipse becomes exact. So not right after, but 48 hours after, because we are downloading new templates at the time of the eclipse, and the energies are quite intense the 48 hours before and after the eclipse. So we want to really keep that time open for meditation or just tuning into ourselves or just taking it easy during that time. And we don't want to set intentions yet. We want to wait until all this energy has settled down a little bit, and then we want to set intentions. But we also definitely don't want to do this during moon void of courses, right? During a moon void of course phase. So there are two best and most potent times to set your intentions for the solar eclipse cycle. The first one lasts for a little over 13 hours between 11:17 a.m. on December 16th until 12:34 a.m. on December 17th. So that's right after midnight on December 17th. And the second time frame that's really potent to set intentions lasts for almost 34 hours between 1:27 a.m. on December 17th, so also very early in the morning on December 17th, until 11:17 a.m. on December 18th. Now, all of this is US Eastern Time, New York time zone. If you do live in a different time zone other than EST, then please feel free to join me on my Facebook fan page or on my Twitter page if you don't want to be converting time zones yourself. I will be posting reminders when it's time to set your intentions on my Facebook fan page and on Twitter, so that way when you see those posts, you can just sit down and set your intentions at that time. Now, I would say set powerful intentions because they cover the next 6 months, and align these intentions with the Sagittarian energy and what we talked about in the video, okay? Now, for more information on setting intentions, go to my website and go to my blog page, and then look for astrology articles, or you can also look for the tag New Moon Intentions on the right-hand side of the blog page, which if you access that from a computer. But I will also have a link below this video in case you can't find it on my website. There will be a link right below. Okay, now if you want to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, feel free to do that via my homepage at astrologercoach.com, or you can also send me an email at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. My newsletters usually have special offers. They have the videos, they have announcements about courses and webinars and things like that. So if that's of interest to you, feel free to sign up for that. And then, yeah, if you want to ask any personal questions in connection to any of the eclipses or in connection to what's coming up over the next month or the next 6 months, feel free to book a reading on my website at astrologercoach.com, or you can also ask questions in connection to what's coming up during the monthly forecasting forum, either on December 6th or on January 8th. Okay, so again, on December 6th, we'll focus on the upcoming Jupiter-Saturn alignment in Aquarius, which starts a new 20-year social economic cycle. So that's really powerful. And on January 8th, we will cover the preview for 2021, talking about what to expect for the coming year. My members will see me around the time of the next full moon, or a little bit before the next full moon, for the next full moon video. So we can look at what's been happening since we've started setting our solar eclipse intentions. And everyone else will see me for the next new moon. However, watch out for additional support videos as well, because I'm posting those right now to just give a little bit of extra support to everybody, since some people are dealing with a lot of challenges right now and adversity. So have a good one. Much love to all of you, and happy holidays if I don't see you before then. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.